Well, today we continue our series called The Vow. And what I love about this series is that no matter what your relationship status, whether you're single or married or previously married, you name it, this has a purpose. This has a message for all of us. We can all relate here. And what I know about navigating the affairs of the heart is that it can be confusing and challenging and difficult. But the Bible gives us some critical insight and principles from God's Word to increase the odds of a marriage that can last a lifetime. And that's what we're looking at today. And I think what we're going to talk about today, this vow of partnership, this vow of oneness, I think it will help us, regardless of the relationship status we find ourselves in, it'll help us navigate any major season in our relationships. And so as we get started, how many of you, show of hands, how many of you would say, I married someone very different than me? Both my hands are up, all right? That's a lot of us, right? That's. I would say it's probably the majority, because here's the deal. Christina and I, in my marriage, we are very different. Let me give you want to hear a few ways that Christina and I are different? Yeah? That's kind of fun to hear, right? You can laugh at me and pray for her. Christina is an extrovert. I am more of the introvert. Christina is a realist. I'm the dreamer. She's the saver. I tend to be the spender. She is an incredible planner, and I tend to live with a little bit more adventure. Christina is good at encouraging our kids, and I am way more critical. They will get off the field on a game, and Christina will be like, oh, great job, you did so good. And I'll be like, don't say that. They did okay. Like, let's just be honest here. That wasn't their best game. Christina does not have a competitive bone in her body. And I tend to live with a little bit more of a Ricky Bobby mindset that if you're not first, you're last, you know? Woo! Christina wants all her ducks in a row before she makes any plans or moves forward with something or does a change, and I'll just shoot the ducks out of my way, right? Christina likes to talk before we go to bed, and I think you get the idea. We have differences. We have some differences when it comes to our marriage, and here's what is so crazy about relationships. When we're dating, was that too far? Anyways. In dating, what do opposites do? They attract, right? But in marriage, opposites attack, right? And this is really good if you're dating or if you're single, to understand that you will always drift towards someone that's different than you because there's something intriguing about that. If you're uptight, you really like someone that's a little bit more freestyle and just a little bit more go with the flow type personality. There's something engaging and captivating. You think, well, I'm so structured. I just need a little bit someone else that'll help me be and act a little bit different. And that sounds really great in dating. And then you get married, and a few years in, you think, you lazy bum, get off your butt. Let's go, right? Like let's get some stuff done. See, if we're not careful, we can let our differences begin to divide us in our relationships. But I want you to know it doesn't have to be that way. In fact, God's design for our differences in marriage is meant to enhance the relationship and actually strengthen us. And you could argue that the more different you are in marriage, the greater opportunity you have to grow and become more like Christ. Did you catch that? Because some of us are here today, and in our marriages, we're struggling because we're like, they just don't get it. And you allow the differences to drive you apart when God intends for those differences to draw you together in unity, to grow and knock off the hard edges and reshape some aspects of your life that otherwise may never have gotten dealt with. And God wants to use our marriages to make us better. And this is the vow of partnership. That we're better together than we could ever be on our own. And if you're taking notes, you may want to jot this down, because every great relationship has to progress from these three stages or phases. It first starts with me, then it moves to you, and then to we. See, before you ever meet someone or start a relationship, who is life typically about? It's about myself, right? It's about me. I make decisions through a single filter. What is best for me? What do I want? And then someone catches your eye and you're like, ooh, I like her. And I like you. And so I want to pursue them in hopes that they will like me. And we often will skip God's design for relationship. We get stuck always viewing our relationship through a me lens, and we miss out on God's design for a great relationship. See, God's design for our relationships is to move from a me to a we. And there's no longer me and you, there's now us, there's now we. But the tragedy is that most marriages never get to the we. The reason why is we walk into marriages thinking, I want to make you what's best for me. There are three enemies of oneness. I'm not going to unpack them in their entirety, but I think it's worth highlighting because each one of them speaks to a me-centered focus that sacrifices we on the altar of me. Three enemies of oneness. The first one is selfishness. And we all have this selfish nature inside of us. And when I'm living selfishly, it's really hard to have a view of you or even we. The next enemy of oneness, the next enemy of this vow to partnership is pride. And throughout Scripture, you will see the warning against selfishness, against pride, and you will see the life of Jesus who came not to be served, but to serve, and give him his life as a ransom for many. Selfishness and pride had no part of it. Because when Jesus came, he modeled for us what a we kind of life would look like, a life not bound by selfishness or pride. See, when I'm allowing my pride to be my focus, or when pride comes in as an enemy to oneness, it keeps me from a posture of humility, from a posture of admitting or submitting or respecting my spouse. And the third enemy to oneness is neglect. And I may not be visibly selfish, I may not be visibly prideful, but the neglect of what I was called to do as a husband or a wife in serving and caring for and being present for my spouse, I sacrifice on the altar of me. Selfishness, pride, neglect, all of these highlight the me in a relationship and don't make any room for the we. This is why God, as our first priority in our life and in our marriage, is so important. Because when God is at the center of my life, it strips away the selfish parts of us. It allows us to filter through the junk in life and see our marriage, see our lives from a greater perspective and a greater picture. And the problem with making you what is best for me is it leaves no room for we, and we is the goal that God has for marriage. In Genesis 2:24, I know some of you are like, is he ever going to get to the Bible here? And here it is, Genesis 2:24, this simple passage. From the very beginning of creation, God painted a picture of what this should look like. I'm going to read it and then we'll jump back to it. But it says, therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. God's picture of marriage is a lot like art. I grew up in a home where both of my parents are art majors, and so we would go to the art museum and be bored out of our minds as kids walking through. But I remember learning about realism and expressionism and abstract art, and I remember seeing some abstract art and being like, I just don't get it. It doesn't look like anything. It's skewed, it's twisted, it's a non-clear picture of something. That's not God's design for marriage, though. See, God, rather than marriage being an abstract idea, an unclear, twisted perspective, God paints a portrait of what marriage is supposed to look like. And he does that in Genesis 2:24. That in the midst of our similarities and in the midst of our differences, God paints this picture that Adam and Eve's marriage and our marriage is a picture of oneness. Like two roads that merge into one. And that's the vow we're looking at today, this vow of partnership. Let me read Genesis for us again. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother. Let me pause right there. That word leave in the original Hebrew language, it carries with it two emphasis points. It's this idea of loosening of authority and abandoning dependency. And so in marriage, for marriage to take place, a man shall leave his father and mother, loosen from authority and abandon dependency emotionally on his family structure. So there's got to be a leaving so that he can hold fast to his wife. That word hold fast. As in some of your Bibles, it may be translated united or to cleave to his wife. The word structure there, hold fast, it literally means to cling or to be glued together. To be attached, where two separate things were joined together and inseparable from this point forward. This is God's design or portrait that he gives us for marriage, that two people become one, that they move from me to we. Fast forward to Jesus, and when he's walking this earth, and in Matthew 19, he takes this same verse and he kind of expounds on it a little bit more. He's got some religious leaders of the day talking to him and asking him about divorce, and is divorce okay? And I love this because Jesus says it like this. He says, have you not read? And he's talking to the religious leaders, so he knows that they have. But he's just kind of like calling them out a little bit. Have you not read that he who created them from the beginning made them male and female? Like we were created intentionally, designed differently. He made them male and female differently. And he said, therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but they're one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let man not separate. And don't miss this, because in Matthew 19 and in Genesis 2, physical intimacy is not what is being talked about. You actually, in the original Hebrew in Genesis and here in Matthew, there is not a single word, reference, or construct talking about physical intimacy. God's design for marriage is so much more. That's part of it, but it's way bigger than that. The miracle of marriage is that when we follow God's design, there's something supernatural that happens. Where we are bonded together as one physically, one emotionally, one spiritually, and one from me and you to we as we're bonded together. Maybe a good picture of this is what came to mind, first of all, was my shop class in high school. I took wood class, shop class, and on the first day, the teacher walked us through and showed us how all the tools work, how to be safe. Here's some extra things to make sure that you're pushing the wood through the tools safely. And then the second day, I remember him holding up a bottle of glue, and he said, "This is stronger than wood." And we all laughed and like, what is he talking about? But he went on to explain and demonstrate, because this would be the part of our first project in shop class. He said, when you take this wood and you put it, or this glue, and you put it on this piece of wood over here, and you put it on this piece of wood, and you join them together and clamp them together, that glue, that bond, that seam will be stronger than the wood itself. And then the next class, he showed us, and he broke that wood that he had glued together. But the joint, that glue joint, is not where it broke. It broke next to it, because the glue was stronger. And God's intention for marriage, for unity, this vow of partnership, is to take two separate people or pieces of wood and glue them together so that they are stronger together than they could ever be on their own, and inseparable from that moment forward. And so with the rest of our time today, because there is so much trying to tear away at the fabric of our marriages and the bond of oneness that God designed for us, I want to spend the rest of our time looking at some glues, relational glues that can hold us together to focus our marriages and move us from a me-centered perspective to a we-centered perspective. 6 glues that move from me to we type oneness. You ready? All right, never mind, I'm done. Now, are we ready? Because there's a lot trying to divide and rip away at the fabric of our marriages and this bond that we have had. And maybe some of you are here today and thinking there's just not any hope. Like the glue is gone. It's been disintegrated. Here's the first glue. The glue of spiritual growth. We're going to unpack that a little bit more in just a second. I'm going to give us 6, maybe if there's time, a 7th, but I'm only going to unpack and dive into 3 today. The glue of spiritual growth. Secondly, the glue of sexual purity. Number 3, the glue of romance. Number 4, the glue of forgiveness, which Jesus and his life models for us perfectly. The God who loved us so much that he sent his son Jesus to come to provide a way of forgiveness that we could be reconciled and brought back into a relationship. Number 5, the glue of communication. Number 6, the glue of financial responsibility. There's nothing magical about this list, and the list could go on, but this tends to capture the majority of issues and struggles that couples go through that attack the oneness that God intended for our marriages. So let me unpack first this glue of spiritual growth. This is a lot of what we talked about last week. And if you missed our message last week, I'd encourage you to go back online. Every week we post the messages. You can go to heritagechurch.cc/watch or media, or click on the media button at the top and click on the Barrington page, and it'll pull up all of our past messages. But until God becomes the center of your marriage can't thrive. That was in essence what we talked about last week, that you may be surviving in your marriage, but God's design for your relationship wasn't just to grin and bear it, but to thrive and grow and become better together. But it only happens when God is the first priority in our marriage and in our relationship. For some, the very next step in our marriage and in our lives would be to surrender my life to Jesus. To say, Jesus, you can have my whole life. I'm going to take myself off the throne of my life, and you can take that place. And to go public with that decision through baptism, to tell everyone and make the commitment, Jesus is the center of my life and the center of my marriage, and from this day forward, I'm going to put him in his rightful place. This is where it begins for all of us, and sadly where it ends for many of us. Where we make a decision for Jesus to follow him with our lives, but then it never trickles into the other crevices of our daily living out this idea. See, if you want to strengthen the bond of oneness in your marriage, then you need to begin practicing your faith together. And you may be a follower of Jesus, but you're growing separately, or one of you is growing and the other one isn't. And your very next best step would be to intentionally grow together. To start taking steps to say, how can we do this together? How can I learn more about who God is and what his plan is for our marriage, not just on my own, but engage my spouse in that as well? That could look like simply praying for your spouse or praying with your spouse. To join a small group, to serve together. I've loved seeing in the last couple weeks some of our new families to the church starting to serve, not just him over here and her over here, but like serving together and doing ministry together. See, if you want the bond of your marriage to last a lifetime, it'll require continual growth, continual investment, continual prioritizing of your faith together. The glue of spiritual growth, not individually, but together, binds you together. Secondly, the glue of financial responsibility. The glue of financial responsibility. Here's why this is so important. Because every study that has ever been done on marriage and conflict in marriage has breaking up, dividing, arguing, and stress related to money and finances. And the glue of financial responsibility means that that we have a better perspective, that I don't have my agenda over here and her agenda over here for how we spend our money. We don't do the whole separate bank account thing, and I get to spend my money on this and you get to spend your money on that, but we have a common goal and purpose with our finances. This is a huge area where couples struggle to move from me and you to we. Which is why in Proverbs 3:9, God tells us, honor the Lord with your wealth and the first fruits of your produce. That the goal of our finances and our resource is to honor God. Not individually in marriage, but if in marriage, two are supposed to become one flesh, like Genesis 2:24 tells us, then my financial goals, your financial goals, our financial bank accounts and perspectives come together to have a united front. To not let our stuff control us, which is why 1 Timothy 6:10 says, for the love of money, it's the root of all kinds of evil. Notice it does not say that money is the root of all evil. But what? The love of it. Money's a thing. It's what I invest in or how it impacts my heart. The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. For some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. I believe that one of those many griefs is this desire for control. That I think that if I have more money, then I will be in control. If I have more stuff, then I'll be in control. If I can control our finances, then I can control our marriage. The issue of money sometimes isn't even the issue, but it's this driving desire for control in the marriage. Most oftentimes, my struggle to find the we is because of my desire to control what's happening and what's next. I want my way, my idea, my stuff. It adds pressure, and it threatens that bond of our marriage to fracture. There are so many ways you can work towards financial responsibility together in your marriage. We have people in the church that love coming alongside people and giving advice and biblical principles to the resources that God has entrusted us with. But here's one of the best things that you can do in this area for your marriage. When it comes to financial responsibility, it so often just takes sitting down together and coming up with a plan. Sitting down together and creating financial goals. Sitting down together and coming up with a budget. Coming up with a plan to pay off debt. Coming up with a plan to talk about what we want for the future and how we're going to get there. And a plan to say, maybe we need some help in some of these areas. And who can we find as a coach to help us walk along with and navigate the financial responsibilities with which God has given us. And rather than going in two separate directions, coming together with a common financial goal. Can you see how that would alleviate so much of the tension and so much of the pressure that gets put on our marriage? And then number 3, the glue of communication. And you could take this a lot of different ways, but for the sake of today and the dynamics of your family and how that could go, I want to talk about family communication. How we communicate within our family, how we communicate spouse to spouse, how we communicate spouse to kids and kids to kids. If we're not careful and intentional, we can let our kids divide us. Amen. Amen. My identity and my value can get caught up in my kids. My life gets out of order because of my kids. The pressure you put on your kids and the choices and the fallout of your choices can affect. Look, it's not your kid's fault. It's a lack of communication and intentionality to prioritize your communication, to lead your kids well, to make sure that you're not dependent on their affirmation or their success for your identity. And the tension and the stress that can pull apart at the bond of how we choose to raise our kids and what kind of kids we want to have and the priorities of our family together. See, one of the best tools that we have to keep yourself from being pitted against each other by our kids or over our kids is to prioritize the health and consistent patterns of communication. Consistent patterns of communication. This is listening and talking. Consistently, ongoing, which is why James, and throughout the Bible, let me just highlight two passages. But James 1:19 says, let everyone be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Why? Well, you take that and apply it to marriage. If I'm quick to respond, then I'm not hearing my spouse. I'm not seeking oneness, I'm seeking me verification, right? I want my identity. Let every person be quick to hear, though, because if I'm quick to hear, I begin building a listening principle to hear each other out and come up with understanding their priority. And when I understand your priority, and you can understand my priority, then we have a better chance of coming up with our priority. As a family, together, we can build this consistent pattern of listening to our spouse. And then I love Proverbs 14:22. It says, those who plan what is good find love and faithfulness. Those who plan what is good. Plan. Plan things that are good. Plan by talking, communicating it out, figuring out, listening to, and seeking to understand. And when we plan together the communication structure for our marriage, what do we find? Love and faithfulness. We plan and prioritize our family communication and get a better chance of getting on the same page. And so the communication becomes this plan that sets up a couple to build a bond and a united front as a team. And if I don't communicate, then we go through seasons of this, don't we? Where we'll go week after week of just constant running kids here and running kids there and just getting dinner done and drive through here. And we can go several weeks and being like, how's it going? I haven't seen you or talked to you in days. And then we have to reset, find the schedule again, begin to communicate. Hey, what are we missing? I'm sorry, and listening to hear each other out, get back on the same page, come up with a plan to be on the same team. One of the comments I will continually make to our kids as a way of setting the priority for our family is when my kids try to hijack our relationship or just simply interrupt a conversation. Dad, mom. And I'll stop and I'll say, hold on one second. You're interrupting. Your mom and I are talking. One day you will leave this house, but your mom and I are going to be married forever. So you don't get to interrupt. You have to stay there and wait. And it doesn't even have to be something important that we're talking about. Like one of our kids could potentially be on fire. But what I'm setting in that moment is the priority for my family that my kids do not get to determine my marriage. My kids do not get to be a wedge to divide the oneness that God has called us to. Communication. Establishing this goal for your family together. Painting a picture for the future of your family together and then backing one another up. Because it doesn't work to talk about it, say, here's the plan, and then only one person try to follow through. Because it's difficult, right? And there are times where I'll let the kids interrupt our conversation. And I'll need my wife to pull me back and, hey, our kids don't get to, oh yeah, you guys wait. And re-engage in the conversation, right? And vice versa, we get to be a team and have each other's back. And I know for those of us that are single parents or co-parenting after divorce, this can be really challenging. I know firsthand, growing up in a divorced family, the challenges that come in communication when co-parenting or struggling and dealing with some of those dynamics. I want you to know that you're not alone. I want you to know that God is moving and working in you and through you. He's going to bring people into your life and into your kids' lives to be mentors. And God has a place for people in your life to speak into and help you with your kids. Lean into those. Lean into youth groups. Lean into campus life experiences. Lean into mentors and friends that will come along and support and care for you. They are a gift from God, and they can become friends that become like family. And if that's you, and if that's the season that you find yourself in, know that you're not alone. And that God is walking in this season with you, and he's working on your behalf for the betterment of your kids. And just because there may be a division or a separation that causes some tension doesn't mean that your kids have to suffer the consequences. The vow of partnership, this vow of oneness, it requires continual investment and assessment of our priorities. Have you ever seen an elderly couple sitting at a table talking together? Have you ever seen an elderly couple on a walk holding hands and just thought, man, I wonder what their secret is? Like, how did they get there? How did they last this long? How do they still seem so happy? The answer may vary, but all of them would be as simple as what we've talked about today. Some of those answers are the glues that would bind us and hold us together. It's about remembering your vow to God and your vow to your spouse. It's uniting around the common areas of marriage that are threatened by the external circumstances and situations that try to tear apart the bond that God has brought us together with. I told you if we had time, we'd highlight one more bonus, if you will, glue that holds us together, and it's a whole lot less spiritual sounding, but I think it's still very important. I think it's one of those secrets that an elderly couple would share, and it's the glue of fun. It's the glue of fun, and couples that stop having fun together miss out on some of the impact, miss out on some of the enjoyment that they can find in marriage. All relationships over time can become familiar. And that familiarity can lead to couples just going through the motions. Over time, you can stop prioritizing ways to stay connected and stay bonded to one another. And so guys will go off and do their thing, and the ladies will go off and do their thing, and we stop doing we things. And I'm not saying that you have to make sure that everything you do, your spouse likes to do, and like you can have your own hobbies as well, but make sure that you have things you enjoy together. That takes communication as well, because we're constantly changing, and the things that I used to enjoy doing, I maybe no longer enjoy doing as much. And so it's constantly going to be shift, and it's constantly going to change, and we constantly need to be pursuing and intentional about the things that we do together. Having fun together, finding things that we enjoy and prioritize them and protect them so that we can enjoy a lifetime of marriage with our spouse. I don't care if it's a favorite TV show that you watch and talk about and look forward to. I don't care if it's going on a walk together or camping or date nights. Just find the things that you like to do and do them. And if you're thinking, well, I mean, where is that in the Bible? Tell me where the Bible tells me I have to have fun. Well, look, if that's your response, then we have a bigger issue, okay? Throughout Scripture, we see God institute and call his children to celebrate, to throw a festival, to enjoy a party, to kill the fattened calf, and we're going to celebrate together. And if we're called to do that as individuals, or as a group of people, as the body of Christ, how much more are we called to do that with the one he has called us to be one with? God's design for marriage was not that you just survive it, but that you thrive in it. Because marriage is the best way for us to understand God's love for us. And what we see in Ephesians and what we see throughout the Bible is God's picture and demonstration of love through his son, Jesus, who came as an example, as an illustration, if you will, of what marriage should look like. Sacrificial, surrendered, respecting, loving unconditionally. Love that, do you get that? Love that is unconditional. Love that is not conditioned on, well, they did their part, so I'll do mine. Or they didn't do what they said they would do in our vows on our wedding day, so now I'm not going to do. No, love that's unconditional. How often, how many times did the people through the Old Testament, God's chosen people, the Israelites, turn and walk away from God? And yet he always welcomed them back. And how often will we get divided and allow things in our marriages to divide us? And what could it look like to allow forgiveness to take hold? To surrender my pride and my selfishness and neglect those things that come to divide us so that I can be united to my spouse to fulfill the vow that I made on our wedding day. God's love, an unwavering commitment. A relationship filled with love and sacrifice that's fueled by a greater understanding for our lives. This vow, this covenant that God makes with us is meant to bring new life, to allow us to work through the hard things in life, to help us fulfill a bigger purpose and live for something greater than ourselves. God's love for us is a blueprint of a healthy marriage that lasts a lifetime. The vow of partnership, creating this priority. He wants the glue to hold our marriages together. But you'll never drift into a healthy marriage. It takes intentionality, it takes effort. It takes uniting around the things that seek to divide us. To get on the same page, to move from a me-focused perspective to a we-focused relationship. So what's your next step? What area do you need to lean into that we've talked about today? What glue do you need to reapply or reprioritize so that you can continue to grow together? Maybe there are some areas that have been fractured in your marriage. Maybe there are some areas that have been torn apart. How can you reestablish the commitment and vow you made for oneness in the areas that you've found yourselves drifting away from? It starts with God as the center priority of my life and my marriage. And then intentional investment in building in and reapplying the glue that will hold us together for a lifetime.